Faly miarahaba antsika rehetra tratran'ity hariva ity ary velonaina soamantsara ka mandray anjara amin'izao fotoana izay efa nifanaovantsika izao. Dia raina ny tompo satria izy no nikarakara antsika, izy no nanome antsika aina sy fofinaina ka tonga eto isika menakavy amin'izao hariva izao. Mbola mamerina ny fisaorana an'Andriamanitra isika satria izy tokoa no nahatonga antsika tahaka an'izao ary misaotra antsika rehetra tonga manatrika an'izao fotoana izao. Somary mangatsika ny andro, misy ny rivotra mangatsika, kanefa dia tonga eto isika menakavy manohy ny fandiniana ny tenin'Andriamanitra ary mianatra ihany koa ny amin'ity lohahevitra lehibe anankiray izay fanibandintsika nandritra n'izao fotoana izao. Inona moa no hevitra lehibe izay bandintsika fa tsy ny hoe inona ny tokony ataontsika mba aela velona. Isika tsiraray avy zao araky ny fanambarana dia maniry izany atao hoe ela velona izany ary mamerina kely ny amin'ny hoe ny amin'ny fiteny azy dia hoe oka mba ho ela velona, mba ho tratratra, izany hoe fikasana mandrakariva izany ro vita alohan'ny aina rehefa manome akanjo ohatra tsodrano izany zavatra izany, hita eo amin'ny fiainantsika izany, hita eo amin'ny fomba fiteny ary amin'ny zavatra rehetra izay ataontsika dia ezana mandrakariva ny ialana amin'ny fahafatesana satria fahavalo ny fahafatesana. Isika dia tsy natao ho faty fa natao ho velona mandrakizay. Raha namorona antsika Andriamanitra dia tsy namorona antsika ho faty izy fa namorona antsika ho velona, ary tsy no velona eto ihany fa no velona mandrakizay. Kanefa araky ny fahitantsika tsy araky ny kasaina tamin'ny voalohany izany zavatra izany, fa tafiditra ny fahotana, tafiditra ny aretina, tafiditra ihany koa ny fahafatesana. Kanefa Andriamanitra dia tsy namela antsika ho very tanteraka na tsy manana ale intsony, fa Andriamanitra nanao planina ihany izy, na ny planina izy mba azahoany mamerina indray zay zavatra zay efa very. Koa amin'ity androany ity isika dia andinika lohahevitra anankiray izay manampy antsika mba ho ela velona. Maly sika aloha dia nahita fifaliana ny aino an'ireto profesora ireto izay nanazava ny amin'ny hoe inona no atao mba hatonga antsika ho ela velona eo amin'ny lafiny ara-pahasalamana izany. Ary androany dia andinika isika eo amin'ny lafiny ara-panahy. Kanefa fikaroana ara-tsiansy, nisy artikla nivoaka tamin'ny faha 15 ny volana Jona ny taona fa 2012. Izany hoe fikaroana nataon'ireo mpitsabo mahay. Ka izao ny zavatra hitandry zareo tamin'ny fikaroana: misy fifandraisany ny mahaela velona sy ny famelan-keloka. Zay zany fikaroana, mitady izy hoe misy fifandraisana ve ny voavela eloka sy ny mamela eloka amin'ny hoe mahaela velona. Dia zao ny zavatra hita ny ariary zany tamin'ny fikaroana fa ireo zay tsy voavela eloka na tsy mamela eloka dia tsy lahavandro, fa ireo izay mahatsiaro fa voavela ny elony ary mamela eloko izy dia miaina ao anatin'ny fahasalamana bebe kokoa noho nyreo izay be lolom-po sy tsy mamela eloka. Ka hita zany fa ity famelan-keloka ity dia mahatonga fahaela velona. Zany ane zavatra mazava. Raha ohatra ka ataontsika hoe matsiaro isika fa tsy voavela eloka, inona moa ny zavatra mitranga? Inona ny zavatra mitranga eo amin'ny fiaina? Zao alohan'izay ny Baiboly dia efa milaza an'izany talohan'izany fikaroana izany. Efa nilaza an'izany atao hoe misy fifandraisany ny famelan-kely koa sy ny fahasitranana. Zao ny voalaza ao amin'ny Jakoba, amin'ny Jakoba toko 5 ary ny andininy faha 11 vakitsika amin'ny anaran'ny tompo izany. Koa mifaneke heloka ianareo ary mifampivavà mba ho sitrana ianareo. Izany hoe voalaza eto ny hoe mifaneke heloka mba ho sitrana, ary le hoe sitrana eto dia tsy fahasitranana ara-batana ihany fa fahasitranana ihany koa ara-panahy, fahasitranana amin'ny lafiny rehetra, na eo amin'ny saina izany na eo amin'ny vatana izany na eo amin'ny fifandraisana izany fahasalamana. Koa ny Baiboly dia efa manambara an'izany sahady, aoka ifamela heloka ianareo mba ho sitrana. Ka rehefa tsy mamela heloka tokoa ny olona anankiray, na ataontsika hoe matsiaro fa diso izy, enjeniny eritreritra, inona ny zavatra mitranga? Manahoana ny torimaso? Mamy ve ny torimaso? Raha ohatra ka matsiaro fa voaheloko, tsy matsiaro voavela heloko, dia misy akony amin'ny torimaso. Maro zany sa tsy marina? Misy akony amin'ny torimaso zany zavatra izany. Kanefa ny torimaso ilaina amin'ny fahasalamana sa tsy ilaina? Tena ilaina, dia ilaina tokoa izany torimaso izany. Ary indrandray aza tsy mazotomana, tsy mazotomana na isakafo ataontsika hoe mahasalama io aza dia tsy te hinana ny olona rehefa matsiaro voaheloka na tsy mamela heloka na misy lonilony ao anaty eo dia manjary tsy mazotomana. Dia misy akony zany zavatra zany eo amin'ny fahasalamana. Dia ny olona ohatran'izany koa mora kivy, matsiaro izy hoe misy zavatra kely anankiray dia efa mora kivy izy, na mora tezitra, zany koa ny zavatra hita ihany koa zany zavatra izany. Ary ny olona zay tsy mamela heloka dia olona zay atao hoe voagetsa. Ka iny olona zay ananany lonilony iny olona zay tsy navela heloka iny dia zao ohatrany eo mandrakarivo, na eo izy na tsy eo dia ao amin'ny saina foana, mieritreritra. Na ataontsika hoe any amin'ny 100 kilometatra aza le olona, na ataontsika hoe 10 kilometatra aza le olona, dia eo mandrakarivo makany amin'ny saina, izy dia nanao an'izao, nanao an'izao, mieritreritra. Olona rery zao dia miteny hoe irano nataony azy aloha, ty ohatran'izao ataoko an'izao mihitsy iny atao. Le olona nefa any lavitra be any dia izy zany le olona tsy mamela heloka miaraka aminy eo le olona tsy navela heloka eo le izy. Ka izao na eo zany indrindra moa rehefa mifankahita aminy dia iny le olona dia maninona ny eo amin'ny fo ao? Miakatra, manjary misy fihetsem-po hafahafa. Zany hoe ny olona zay tsy mamela heloka zany dia tsy olona afaka, olona voagetsa, andevoziny zany zavatra izany, tena zava-doza. Ary zany mahatonga ny tsy fahasalamana, zany mahatonga ny tsy mahela velona raha ohatra ka manana an'izany toe-tsaina izany. Koa dia marina ny filazan'ny Baiboly, marary zany ny olona zay tsy navela heloka na ny olona zay tsy mamela heloka, marary. Ary mila mamela heloka izy, mila mifamela izy, zay vao sitrana. Zay le voalaza ao amin'ny Jakoba toko 5 zay nibakitsika teo, mifamela heloka ianareo mba ho sitrana. Koa ny fahasitranana, ny fahasalamana dia mahatonga, zany hoe rehefa sitrana iny zany dia salama. Ka rehefa salama isika dia ho ela velona, ela velona ny olona salama. Koa ilaina dia ilaina zany ity famelan-keloka ity. Ka izao ny fanontaniana mipetraka dia ity: zava-dehibe ve izany? Jesosy dia laza mihitsy ny amin'ny mahazava-dehibe an'io, kanefa andeha hozaraintsika roa ilay hoe famelan-keloka. Voalohany indrindra aloha dia ny ahatonga antsika ho voavela heloka, voavela heloka eo anatren'Andriamanitra, azo atao ve zany isika mpanota isika dia meloko kanefa Andriamanitra dia efa nanome antsika ny fomba atonga antsika ovavela eloko. Ina moa ny voalaza ao amin'ny Jona voalohany toko voalohany ary ny andininy fahasivy. Zao no fanambarana efa haintsika tsenjery izy io. Raha misy manota dia ahoana ozy dia manana mpisolo vava isika ary izy no misolo vava antsika. Dia zao no fanambarana ato amin'ny Jona voalohany toko voalohany ary ny andininy fahasivy. Vakitsika amin'ny anaran'ny Tompo izany. Zao ny voalaza eto vakitsika amin'ny mpanajana. Andininy fahasivy. Raha miaiky ny fahotantsika isika dia mahatoky sy marina izy ka mamela ny fahotantsika sy manadio antsika ho afaka amin'ny fahamarinana rehetra. Amin'ny tsy fahamarinana rehetra zafady. Ho afaka amin'ny tsy fahamarinana rehetra. Raha miaiky ny fahotantsika isika dia mahatoky sy marina izy ka mamela antsika, manadio antsika ho afaka amin'ny tsy fahamarinana rehetra. Zany hoe inona ny fepetra mba tonga antsika voavela eloko? Miaiky ny fahotantsika. Satria Jesosy efa maty misolo antsika ary zay famelan-keloka izay zany no tonga antsika ho salama, atonga antsika ahazo aina ary maivamaivana ery. Mahatsiaro fanavelan'Andriamanitra ny elontsika. Dia mahatonga fihetsem-po mahafalifaly zany, fihetsem-po mahafinaritra zany zavatra izany. Koa azo atao zany, tsy hoe mila vola be vao afaka voavela eloko. Raha ohatra manko ka vidim-bola izy io dia vomafy ny tsy manam-bola fa tsy voavela eloko. Fa ny rehetrarehetra na manan-karena na mahantra dia afaka magataka famelan-keloka eo anatrehan'Andriamanitra avokoa. Ka tsy misy zany fialan-tsiny manao hoe ka zany mahantra aiza moa azahoako magataka famelan-keloka amin'Andriamanitra. Tsy ariavana fa isika izao dia afaka manatona an'Andriamanitra satria ny rano Jesosy izay fa nalatsaka tao Kalvari dia ampy anadiovana antsika tsiraray avy. Ampy zany. Ary voalaza entiny amin'ny hoe tsy milaza izy tsy manao hoe ny tsy fahamarinana sasansasana. Zay ve le voalaza ao? Ahoana ozy? Ny rehetra. Inona moa ny dikany hoe rehetra? Dia rehetra ny vokatry hoe ny rehetra zany dia rehetra ny izy rehetra ny zany hoe zato isan-jato. Zay ny voalaza eto. Na inona zany nataontsika eo anatrehan'Andriamanitra ary zany mazava-dehibe. Dia inona ny fanafodiny izay? Manatona an'Andriamanitra isika, mangataka famelan-keloka isika dia avelan'Andriamanitra izany elontsika izany. Ka tsy misy mihitsy zany olona izay milaza manao hoe dia tsy misy famelan-keloka mihitsy zany zay ity dia tsy avelan'Andriamanitra tsony ny eloko. Avelany. Ka n'ity androany ity ny ataontsika dia ny manatona an'Andriamanitra, dia mamela ny elontsika izy. Ary dia zao rehefa mamela eloko Andriamanitra dia tena mamela tokoa satria voalaza ary amin'ny Mika, ao amin'ny Mika toko fahafito ary ny andininy fahavalo-ambin'ny folo sy ny fahasivy-ambin'ny folo. Dia zao ny fanambarana. Iza no Andriamanitra? Iza no Andriamanitra tahaka anao izay mamela eloko sady mandalo fahadisoana ny sisa amin'ny lovany. Andriamanitra zany dia mamela eloko. Ary dia lazainy amin'ny andininy fahasivy-ambin'ny folo fa alatsaka any amin'ny ranomasina lalina izany. Zany hoe raha alay voatsaina zany hoe misy fahotana dia ny bebana izy dia arina any anaty ranomasina lalina dia lalina any dia hoe eo zany le misy signe anankiray hoe tandremo no manjono, tsy misy manjono fahotana any anaty ranomasina any, fa rehefa any izy dia alao ilevinany fa tsy hoe mipoitra ndray. Tsia rehefa mamela heloka zany Andriamanitra dia mamela heloka tokoa izy avelany, ko dia voavela heloka izany isika raha manatona an'Andriamanitra, satria ny rano Jesosy efa nalatsaka ho atsika tsirairay avy. Ka milamina zany ny amin'ny atao hoe fifandraisana amin'Andriamanitra. Izao anefa tsy ampy zay zavatra izay. Jesosy dia milaza fa azo lazaina hoe misy fepetra ihany io hoe amelan'Andriamanitra antsika io, misy fepetra. Zany hoe tsy hoe izay mangataka famelan-keloka zany dia mahafo, ohatra ny efa hafa ihany zany hoe ahoana fampianarana vaovao indray ngamy zany zavatra izany. Tena marina io raha mamaky isika ao amin'ny Maty 5:9 dia milaza mazava tsara ao Jesosy Kristy amin'le vavaka nampianarin'ny tompo. Voalaza ny aloha ao amin'ny 5:9, Maty 5:9 manomboka amin'ny 9:7 izy io, dia hoe ko amin'izany raha mivavaka ianareo dia zao no atao. Dia amin'ny 9:12 dia lazainy eo, ary mamela ny helokay dia ahoana ozy? Tahaka ny namelanay zay meloko taminay. Ny dikan'izany zany dia zao, raha tsy mamela ny heloky ny hafa isika dia tsy avelan'Andriamanitra. Io zany ny fomba anankiray misakana antsika tsy voavela heloko. Raha ohatra ka tsy mamela heloka isika dia tsy avelan'Andriamanitra. Ary sao dia misy mbola misalasala dia averin' Jesosy ny fanambarana amin'ny 15:12 dia zao no lazainy, fa raha tsy mamela ny fahadisoan'ny olona ianareo dia tsy hamela ny fahadisoanareo ny rainareo. Mazava tompoko zany teny gasy zany hoe raha tsy mamela ny fahadisoan'ny olona ianareo dia tsy avelan'Andriamanitra ny helokareo. Ndrandray ohatrany tsy dia tena lazaina loatra zay zavatra zay, fa tena zava-dehibe zany. Jesosy mihitsy milaza manao hoe mamela ny helokay, rehefa mivavaka ianareo dia hoe mamela ny helokay tahaka ny namelanay zay meloka taminay. Zay zany zava-dehibe zay zavatra zay. Ka ilaitsika ny mamela ny heloky ny hafa, satria efa navelan'Andriamanitra sika dia ilaitsika koa ny mamela ny heloky ny hafa. Ary zany no tonga atsika ho ela velona, satria lasa milamin-tsaina. Rehefa namela ny hafa zay isika na navela ny hafa ny helotsika dia milamindamo, matsiaro afakafaka hoe tena navelan'Andriamanitra ny heloko, dia miteraka fifaliana zay zavatra zay. Ary zay fifaliana izay dia mahatonga fahasambarana ary mahatonga fahaelavelona. Dia zao ny zavatra mitranga riavana, le hoe voavela heloko tsy hoe eto an-tany ihany mahela velona, fa le hoe mahela velona eto dia ela velona mandrakizay. Ka zay navelan'Andriamanitra zao ane misy fanambarana manao hoe na ny lanitra ozy izy na ny elo dia zao samy feno mpanota daholo, samy feno mpanota. Fa izao no mampiavaka azy, ny elo na ny fahaverezana dia zao mpanota tsy voavela heloko, fa ny lanitra kosa dia fen'olona mpanota voavela heloko. Samy mpanota daholo fa mampiavaka azy dia zao ny ray voavela heloko, ny ray tsy voavela heloko. Koa dia zao zany aoka isafidy isika androany, satria teo ela velona eto amin'ity tany ity isika, ary ela velona ihany koa any amin'ny fiainana mandrakizay dia voavela ny helotsika. Ka izy amin'ity androany ity manao hoe andraso ary fa angataka famelana ny heloko eo anatren'Andriamanitra, hitsotra eo anatren'Andriamanitra, ary angataka famelana ihany koa amin'ny hafa, ary amela ny hafa. Tsangamy tanana tompoko Andriamanitra ny ombantsika rehetra, ka mba ho zava-misy tokoa zany eo amin'ny fiainantsika. Zao ary dia omentsika anyreto professeur ireto ny fitenenana anjaran'izy ireo zao dia manohy zany zareo ny amin'ny hoe inona tonga atsika mba anana an'izany atao hoe mahaela velona izany. Professeur Johnson zany no anomboka ny amin'ny hoe inona no atao mba hahatonga an'izany fahaela velona izany ny tompony omba atsika rehetra.
I see there are many more people out here tonight.
Wow, hitako fa maro be kokoa ny olona androany hariva.
I hope everyone is able to find a seat.
Ary mino fa samy nahita toerana daholo tsika rehetra.
I am very blessed to speak with you tonight about another topic that's a very important factor in our health.
Tena fitahina ho any miresaka aminareo no hevitra anankiray indray mahakasika ny fahasalamana amin'ity hariva ity.
And that's the topic of exercise.
Dia ny lohahevitra mahakasika ny fampiasam-batana.
But you know, exercise is a modern invention.
Fantatrareo ny fampiasana dia zavatra moderne na mivoaka tamin'izao vanim-potoana moderne izao.
Because you see, we were made to move.
Satria isika dia natao mba hihetsika.
And for the majority of human history up until recently, we used our bodies primarily to move from place to place and to carry all of our belongings.
Ary ny akamaroan'ny toejavatra miseho teo amin'ny tantaran'ny olombelona zany dia natao ty vatatenantsika ty mba hifindra amin'ny toerana anankiray makany amin'ny toerana hafa ary hitondra ireo entana sy ny fananantsika.
2,000 years ago, in the time of Jesus, the average person walked about 10 miles a day.
Roa arivo taona lasa izay tamin'ny vanim-potoanan'i Jesosy Kristy, ny olona anankiray dia mandeha tongotra sahabo eo amin'ny 70 kilometatra isan'andro eo mba havelona azy.
So if you lived in that kind of a culture in a time, you really wouldn't have to do additional exercise.
Ary raha ianao zany miaina tamin'izany fotoana izany dia tsy nilaina intsony nanao fanampy na fanatanjahantena fampiasam-batana hafa.
But the problem is that with modern life, now we've created a more sedentary, inactive lifestyle for ourselves.
Fa ny zavatra ny olana miseho zany amin'izao vanim-potoana moderne zao dia lasa namorona fomba fiaina izay tsy mihetsika isika fa mipetraka fotsiny.
Now, Madagascar is not as bad as the United States and many other countries, but especially in the big cities, there is an increase of more sedentary jobs like taxi driving and office work.
Sy dia mitovy amin'ireo firenena mandroso hafa loatra i Madagasikara fa misy zany le fomba fiaina izay lasa mipetraka fotsiny tsy manao na inona tahaka an'ireny ohatra hoe mitondra fiara ireny, mety misy aty amintsika zany lasa manana an'izay fomba fiaina tsy mihetsika izay.
And there are more conveniences in the city like cars and motorbikes.
Betsaka ireo zavatra mampahazo aina zany aty an-tanàn-dehibe mahatonga antsika tsy hetsika, misy ny fiara, misy ny moto.
And also when we live in a big city where things are much closer together, we don't need to travel as much anymore.
Ary raha mipetraka any amin'ny tanàn-dehibe ihany koa isika dia saika manakaikikaiky eo daholo ny zavatra ilaina fa tsy mila mandeha tongotra lavitra intsony ianao.
And so now, because our bodies are not moving as much as they should, lack of physical activity causes an increase in a lot of health issues.
Ary satria tsy mihetsika araka ny tokony ho izy tsony isika vokatr'izay toejavatra izay dia hita zany fa misy fiatraikany eo amin'ny fahasalamana izay tsy fanaovana tsy fihetsehana izay.
So we're going to talk tonight about physical activity, which I'm going to use synonymously with exercise, but physical activity, exercise, it just means movement.
Ko amin'ity hariva ity zany dia resaka ny fampiasam-batana isika, ny fanatanjahantena, misy midika fotsiny zany misy hetsika fihetsehana izay tokony atao.
For those of you who were here yet last night, I showed this picture of the top 10 causes of death in Madagascar.
Ho anareo izay teto maly hariva dia efa nasehoko io sary io izay maneho ireo aretina anankitelo farany ambony indrindra miteraka fahafatesana eto Madagasikara.
And if you remember, I highlighted these three as being factors that were heavily influenced by diet.
Ary efa niresahako maly fa reo anankitelo izay nitsipihana mena reo dia vokatry ny sakafo avokoa ny mahatonga an'izany aretina izany.
So that's stroke,
Ny fatapahan'ny lalan-drà,
ischemic heart disease,
ny areti-po,
and hypertensive heart disease.
ary ny fiakaran'ny tosi-drà.
But it turns out that these three factors are also heavily influenced by exercise.
Fa ireo aretina anankitelo ireo ihany koa dia misy voka-dratsy ateraky ny tsy fanaovana fampiasam-batana.
Including the #1 killer in Madagascar, which is stroke.
Ary ao anatin'izany zany ilay miteraka fahafatesana voalohany eto Madagasikara io.
Now, before I dive into exercise, I want to spend some time to talk about why exercise is beneficial.
Ary mialohany tena jerentsika zany mahakasika an'izay fanatanjahantena fampiasam-batana izay dia ho jerentsika aloha hoe nahoana moa no tena azahoana tombontsoa zany fampiasam-batana izany.
Now, imagine you're seeing me as a patient in my office.
Alaiky sary an-tsaina hoe za zany marary ao amin'ny birao.
And I told you I had a brand new, exciting medication.
Dia miteny manao hoe izaho dia manana fanafody vaovao zay tena vaovao be mihitsy.
If you took this medication every day, I will guarantee that it will decrease your risk of stroke.
Ka raha toa ampiasainao io fanafody vaovao io dia azoko antoka fa ena ny riska mety hahatonga ny olana fahatapahan-lalan-drano.
It'll decrease your risk of heart disease.
Ny hidina zany ny riska mety hahatonga anao harary fo.
And diabetes, dementia, and cancer.
Ary na ny homamiadana, ny diabeta sy ny aretin'ny saina dia mety hidina avokoa amin'io fanafody io.
And this medication, the only side effects it has is that it will make you happy and lose weight.
Ary ny anisan'ny voka-dratsy ny fanafody io nefa dia hahatonga anao falifaly izy io ary ena ny lanjanao.
How many of you would want to take this medication?
Firy aminareo reny tia hanana ny ampiasa ny fanafody io e?
I don't think any of you would leave my office without the medication.
Dia azoko antoka fa tsy ala ao amin'ny biraoko ianareo raha tsy mahazo ny fanafody io.
Well, what if I told you that this medication was completely free?
Ary ahoana raha mbola lazaiko ianareo hoe tena maimaim-pona io fanafody io?
Now, how many of you would want to take the medication?
Dia firy aminareo reny tia hanana an'izany fanafody zany, tia haka an'izany fanafody zany?
So, do you understand what I'm getting at?
Dia afantatrareo mba takatrareo azonareo sara an-tsaina ve ny tiako hatongavana.
All of these benefits are not tied to a medication or a drug.
Reo tombontsoa rehetra izay mitany saiko ireo dia tsy mifamatotra amina fanafody simika ilay mahazatra antsika ireny.
It's tied to physical activity.
Fa tena mifamatotra kaiky amin'ny fampiasam-batana.
And it's completely free.
Ary tena maimaim-pona tanteraka izany.
And the reasons why movements and exercise are so beneficial to our health is because of something called myokines.
Ary mahatonga ny fampiasam-batana io tena azona tombontsoa lehibe eo amin'ny fahasalamana dia vokatra ilay zavatra izay antsoina hoe myokine. Tsy fantatro dokotera raha afaka manampy an'izany.
These are chemicals that are released from our muscles when they contract.
Io zany no tonga any amin'ny hozatra rehefa mihetsika zany hozatra izany.
We have a very powerful pharmacy in our muscles.
Satria ao amin'ny hozatrantsika io dia misy pharmacie toeram-pivarotana panafody tena ngeza.
And all these beneficial chemicals are released into our blood when we're moving.
Ary rehefa ampiasaitsika zany io vatantsika io dia misy fanafody izay aparitaka zany fihetsehana zany any amin'ny vatantsika.
And what's amazing is that after exercise, when you stop moving, your muscles still keep releasing these chemicals for several hours.
Ary ny tena mahafinaritra dia na dia efa mijanona tsy manao fihetsehana intsony ary ny vatanao dia mbola mitohy ihany hozatra io mampita an'izany fanafody zany any amin'ny vatantsika.
And these myokines work on various areas of the body and provide lots of health benefits.
Ary misy tombontsoa betsaka dia betsaka zany hoentin'ny myokine io ao amin'ny vatantsika.
This is better than any drug that a doctor can give you.
Ary tena tsara noho ny fanafody izay azon'ny dokotera omenanao zany io zavatra izay atao avokan'ny fampiasam-batana io.
So let me talk to you a little bit about some of the benefits that these myokines provide.
Ary andeha ro resantsika ny tombontsoa izay hoentin'io myokine io eo amin'ny vatantsika.
First, these myokines decrease your risk of stroke.
Voalohany zany dia mampidina ny mety hahatonga anao tapaka lalan-drà io myokine io.
How does it do this?
Ahoana no ahafahany manao an'izany?
Well, first, when you have regular physical activity, this strengthens your heart and your blood vessels.
Ary rehefa manao fampiasam-batana ara-dalàna régulier anao zany dia manampatanjaka ny fonao sy ireo lalan-drà izany.
And this lowers your blood pressure.
Ary mampidina ihany koa ny tosi-drà.
High blood pressure is one of the biggest risk factors for stroke.
satria ny fiakaran'ny tosidra ambony zany mety miteraka am'izay fahatapahany lalandra izay.
So when you lower your blood pressure, you lower your risk of stroke.
Ka raha midina zany iny tosidra iny dia midina ihany koa mety ho fahatapahany lalandra.
Also, when you're moving, your circulation improves and the blood flows through your entire body faster.
Rehefa mihetsika ihany koa ianareo dia angakangana kokoa zany ny fikorianan'ny rà ao amin'ny lalandra.
And you have a lower chance of forming blood clots.
Ary midina ihany koa mety hahatonga ny fivanganan'ny rà ao amin'ny lalandra.
Blood clots are also a risk for stroke.
Satria izany fivanganan'ny rà ao amin'ny lalandra izany mety mitarika ihany koa ny fatapahan'ny lalandra.
There are other things that other benefits that exercise provides that decreases your risk of stroke.
Misy ihany koa zany ny tombontsoa izay azo avy amin'ny fampiasam-batana ka mampidina anio mety io fatapahan'ny lalandra io.
It lowers the bad cholesterol in your body.
Satria mampidina ilay cholesterol ratsy ao amin'ny tenanao zany izay.
And it increases the good cholesterol in your
Ary
body.
mampiakatra ilay cholesterol misy vokany tsara indray ao amin'ny vatanao.
This means that there are fewer cholesterol plaques in your arteries that can cause stroke.
Noho izany dia tsy misy an'ilay cholesterol mipetaka amin'ny lalandra benao iny izay miteraka fahatsetsenany ka miteraka fahatapahany.
It also makes your body more sensitive to insulin.
Ary izany ihany koa dia mahatonga amin'ny vatanao mora tohina sy voakasika amin'ny ilay antsoina hoe insuline.
This decreases your risk for diabetes.
Noho izany dia midina ihany koa zany mety azonao ny aretina diabeta.
And we know that diabetes is a risk for stroke.
Ary fantatsika fa io diabeta io ihany koa dia mety miteraka an'izay aretina amin'ny lalandra zany.
When you exercise, it helps you to maintain a healthy weight.
Ary rehefa manao fampiasam-batana ianao dia manampy anao ihany koa zany hitahiry ny lanja araka ny tokony ho izy.
We know that people who are overweight have an increased risk of stroke.
Satria ireo olona izay betsaka matavy be zany dia mampitombo ihany koa an'izay mety ho aretina fatapahan'ny lalandra izay.
So when you maintain a healthy weight, your stroke risk
Ka
decreases.
rehefa mitahiry ny lanjanao araka ny tokony ho izy zany ianao dia midina ihany koa mety azonao an'izay aretina vokatry ny fatapahan'ny lalandra izay.
When you exercise, the blood flow in your brain increases.
Ary rehefa mampiasa vatana ihany koa ianareo dia mikorina tsara ny amin'ny atidohaniny ra.
And it supports the building of new blood vessels in your brain.
Ary izany dia manatsara ireo sela ao amin'ny atidohanao ao.
And this decreases the risk of stroke.
Ary vokatr'izay dia midina ihany koa ny tany mety hanananao ny aretina fatapahan'ny lalandra.
You can think of it as flushing out sewer pipes in your home.
Azona eritreretina zany ilay takan'ilay hoe mandefa rano amin'ny tuyau ao an-trano iny.
If the water is not flowing, then you can have buildup in your pipes.
Raha ohatra ka tsy mikorina ilay rano dia misy zavatra izay miangona zany any anaty tuyau any.
But if you flush out the pipes on a regular basis, the pipes will stay clean.
Fa rehefa alefanao tsara ilay rano ka mikorona dia tsisy zavatra miangonangona zany fa mikorina tsara ny rano ao anaty tuyau ao.
And that's what exercise does for our brains.
Ary izay no ataon'ny fampiasam-batana ao amin'ny atidohantsika.
So these are all the ways that exercise decreases stroke risk.
Izany rehetrarehetra zany no fomba ahafahan'ny fampiasam-batana mampidina ambany ny mety hanananao ny aretina fatapahan'ny lalandra.
So you might ask me, well, is there evidence that exercise actually decreases the risk of stroke?
Mety manontany ianao manao hoe tena misy zavatra proof mazava be fa tena mampidina ny mety aretina fatapahan'ny lalandra ny fampiasam-batana.
And there is a lot of evidence.
Dia misy ny zavatra proof mazava mahakasika an'izany.
This was a study of thousands of people in Sweden.
Nisy fandinihana natao tamin'ny olona narivony tany Suède.
And it looked at the risk of stroke in relationship to how much exercise they did.
Dia hita teo zany fa misy fandraisana ny mety hatapaka lalandran'ilay olona sy ny fanaovany fampiasam-batana.
And what this study found is that the people who had the highest levels of physical activity had the lowest risk of stroke.
Ary ilay fikarohana zany dia nahitana fa rehefa betsaka ny fampiasam-batana ataon'ilay olona dia midina ny mety azony ny eo aretin'ny lalandra io.
Also, the people who had the lowest rates of physical activity had the highest risk of stroke.
Ka reo olona indray izay kely dia kely ny fampiasam-batana ataony dia miakatra indray ny riska mety hahatonga azy hanana ny aretina fatapahan'ny lalandra.
Now remember, in the top 10 list of causes of death for Madagascar, stroke was number 1, but then there were also heart disease, ischemic heart disease.
Tadidinareo ve le aretina folo miteraka ny fahafatesana eto Madagasikara. Ny voalohany isika teo dia ny fahatapahan'ny lalan-drà fa misy ihany koa zany eo ilay hoe areti-po.
So I want to talk now about the benefits of exercise for your heart.
Ary tiako indray zany nilaza amintsika ny tombontsoa ny fampiasam-batana eo amin'ny fotsika.
So the heart is a muscle like any other muscle.
Ny fo dia takan'ireny ozatra, takan'ny ozatra rehetra, nofo rehetra.
And it strengthens when you exercise it.
Ary rehefa mampiasa vatana isika dia mihetsika zany ilay izy.
Now it's constantly beating, whether you're sitting still or whether you're running. It's always beating.
Ny fo dia mitepy foana na makaina antsika mipetraka na manao fanatanjahantena.
But when you stress your heart by doing exercise, it's forced to work harder and it'll make it grow stronger.
Ary rehefa manao fampiasam-batana isika dia mitarika an'ilay fotsika hiasa misimisy kokoa zany zay hitepy misimisy kokoa dia matanjaka le fo amin'izay fotoana zay.
So if you have a powerful heart, you can imagine one beat of your heart will send more blood throughout your body than a very weak heart that might have to beat 3 or 4 times to send the same amount of blood.
Ary rehefa matanjaka ny fonao dia mitepy ndray mandeha izy dia fa afaka mandefa raha mikorina any amin'ny vatantsika. Fa raha malemy le fo zany dia lasa mila mitepy be dia be izy fa afaka mandefa ny raha ikorina any amin'ny vatantsika.
And so because the heart is so strong and efficient, when you're sitting at rest, it doesn't need to beat very fast. It can beat very slowly and you can still send a lot of blood all throughout your body.
Ka rehefa manao fanatanjahantena ianao zany na rehefa mipetraka makaina ary satria matanjaka le fo dia mbola afaka mandefa raha be dia be ihany any amin'ny vatantsika le izy na dia efa makaina azy tsika.
I don't know if you've ever driven a car with a very weak engine.
Tsy fantatra nareo raha efa nitondra fiarakodia izay kely aina satria tsy matanjaka amin'ny moteur.
Growing up, I had a car like that because it was an old car and I was just learning how to drive. So my dad didn't want to give me a good car.
Izaho tambola vo tanora zany dia nanana fiara tahaka an'izany satria mbola vo mianatra mamily dia tsy nomeny raiky io fiarakodia tena tsara fa le mbola kelikely aina.
And when we're going up a hill, I would step on that accelerator all the way to the ground and the car would just go up the hill.
Rehefa miakatra fiakarana na dia efa etsahako mafy be ara ny accélérateur dia iny le fiara fa mbola mikinainaina ihany vo miakatra n'ilay avona.
And I barely make it.
Ary tena saika tsy tafakatra mihitsy ara tamin'izay.
Later on, I bought a car with a more powerful engine.
Taty aoriana dia nividy fiarakodia izay matanjaka kokoa ny moteurany.
And I remember going to the same hill.
Ary tsaroko fa niakatra tamin'io avona tendrombohitra kely io ihany aho.
And I was so used to pressing the accelerator all the way down to get over the hill.
Ary satria efa zatra manitraka an'ilay accélérateur hatrany amin'ny farany ambany mba ahafahana miakatra.
That I did that with this new car.
Dia adino fa kainy moa efa fiara vaovao ty hoentiko ty.
And the engine was so powerful, I almost flew over the hill.
Ary satria natanjaka be le moteur dia ohatrany nanidina mihitsy niakatra teo amin'ilay tendrombohitra.
So when you're living your day-to-day life, what kind of a heart do you want?
Ka raha miaina amin'ny fiainanao isan'andro ianao dia karazana fo moteur manahoana no tianao hananana.
The more efficient your heart, the more efficiently your blood will circulate, and the more efficiently you'll get rid of toxins and bring nutrients to your rest of
Satria raha
your body.
matanjaka ny fonao dia tsara ihany koa ny zavatra izay aparitany any amin'ny tenanao miparitaka ny zavatra tsara mamelona ny tena sy manala ny zavatra ratsy manimba ny tena.
But when you exercise, it's not just your heart getting a workout.
Rehefa manao fanatanjahantena ianao tsy hoe ny fonao fotsiny lasa miasa.
There are muscles inside your blood vessels too.
Fa misy ihany koa zany ny ozatra ao anatin'ny lalan-drà ao.
And these have to expand and contract while
Ary
you're
tsy
exercising.
maintsy manombotra ny mihitatra ihany koa izy io dia mikaikina ihany koa mihetsika ihany koa zany le lalan-drà.
So your heart, along with all of your blood vessels, get a workout.
Ka ny fonao sy ny lalan-drà rehetra zany dia lasa manao exercice ihany koa miasa mihetsika.
And your blood vessels become more flexible.
Ary lasa malefaka flexible zany le lalan-drà fa tsy enjana be intsony.
And that's why your blood pressure goes down.
Ary izay mahatonga hoe mimidina zany ny tosi-drà.
I talked about the lowering your risk of bad cholesterol and not having cholesterol plaques in your arteries.
Ifandresako telo hoe mampidina ny tahan'ny cholesterol ratsy ihany koa izy io zany ary manala n'ilay mety mipetapetaka any amin'ny lalan-drahany.
But the amazing thing is that when you incorporate exercise along with a plant-based diet like I talked about yesterday,
Fa ny zavatra mahafinaritra ihany koa raha ampiarahanao ny fampiasam-batana sy ny sakafo mifototra amin'ny zava-maniry ilay niresantsika omaly,
it'll make even existing heart disease melt away.
dia hitanareo fa misy ireo aretina amin'ny fo zany izay hiala tanteraka.
We have seen evidence that these cholesterol plaques in your arteries can disappear and reverse with good exercise and a good diet.
Ka ny sakafo tsara sy ny fampiasam-batana tsara zany dia mety manala ilay tavy mipetaka miraikitra any amin'ny lalan-dranao iny, mety hiala tanteraka ireny.
So if any of you are suffering here from heart disease and your doctor has put you on many different medications and you think this is what you're going to have for the rest of your life, there is hope.
Raha ohatra zany ianao marary fo ka efa niteny ny dokotera hoe ianao dia mihinana fanafody mandrapahafatinao dia te hilaza aminao androany mbola misy fanantenana ho anao.
However, if you have heart disease, before you exercise, make sure you get the advice of your doctor to know what kinds of exercise you can do safely.
Kanefa raha marary fo ianao dia mangala hevitra amin'ny dokotera izay mitsampy sy mikarakara anao mba hahafantarana hoe fampiasam-batana na fanatanjahantena tahaka ny ahoana ny azo antoka ho ataonao.
I want to show you some evidence about why exercise is so beneficial to the heart.
Eto zany dia te haneho aminareo ny porofo mazava ny tombotsoa azo avy amin'ny fampiasam-batana.
So this is a statement from the American Heart Association.
Ity dia fanambarana avy tamin'ny fikambanan'ireo mpandinika na mpahay momba ny fo.
This is the most respected group of heart doctors in America.
Io zany no fikambanana tena eketeny amin'ny fikambanana any Amerika makasika ny fo.
And this is their opinion on the benefit of exercise for heart disease.
Ary izao no hevitra milazain'izy ireo makasika amin'ny fampiasam-batana mifandraika amin'ny areti-po.
And they acknowledge that exercise can decrease your risk of dying from heart disease and actually decrease your risk of dying from any disease.
Ka ny fampiasam-batana zany dia mampidina ny tany mety hahafaty anao vokatry ny areti-po sy ny aretina hafa rehetra.
So as a result, they acknowledge here in their paper, they say that exercise is a very important tool in preventing heart disease.
Ny famehezana ny fehikevitra zareo zany dia ny hoe ny fampiasam-batana dia tena zava-dehibe amin'ny fiarovana ireo aretina.
And it's also a very important tool in treating patients with heart disease.
Ary io ihany koa dia tena ilaina amin'ny fitsaboana an'ireo olona izay manana areti-po.
This was another study that looked at exercise and the cardiovascular system.
Dia nisy fikarohana anankiray izay maneho ny amin'ny fampiasam-batana sy ny système cardiovasculaire amin'ny fo ihany zany.
And what's interesting is that it showed that the more exercise you did, the more benefit you got.
Ary ito fikarohana ito dia maneho fa rehefa manao fampiasam-batana bebe kokoa ianao dia betsaka ihany koa ny tombontsoa raisinao.
The more exercise you did, the lower your chance of dying.
Ary arakaraky ny abetsaky ny fampiasam-batana ataonao ny mampiena ny mety hahafaty anao.
Let's talk about exercise and diabetes risk.
Andao jerentsika indray makasika ny fampiasam-batana sy ny resika mety azona ny aretina diabeta.
During our health fair today, I saw quite a few people who had diabetes.
Nandritra n'ilay fampisehoana foara teto zany dia maro ny olona izay manana an'izay aretina diabeta zay nandalo teto amin'ny foara teto.
What happens in diabetes is that your pancreas, which produces insulin, gets tired.
Ny mahatonga izy io mantsy dia ilay taova pancréas dia tsy mamokatra ilay zavatra izay tokony ho ataony intsony amin'ny fanadiovana ny rà.
Now, when you eat food, that food gets converted into glucose, which is sugar in your blood.
Ary rehefa misakafo isika dia tsy voavadika glucose intsony izy io.
And insulin is like the key that unlocks the cell so it can use the sugar.
Ka ny insuline zany mitaka ny lakile izay mamoa ao amin'ny sela ao mba ahafahany mampiasa ilay siramamy io.
And the pancreas makes the insulin.
Ary ny pancréas zany no mamea an'io insuline io.
But what happens in diabetes is that the cells become resistant to insulin.
Ny olana amin'ilay aretina nefa dia lasa manohatra an'io insuline io zany lay aretina.
So it takes a lot more insulin to get the same result.
Dia lasa mila insuline be dia be anao vao azo vokatra mitovy amin'ilay teo aloha.
And the cells are not responding to insulin, so the pancreas has to work extra hard just to get the cells to use the sugar that's in the
Dia mila
blood.
miasa mafy indray io taova-kely io zany mba hahatonga ilay insuline hanao ny asa izay tokony ho ataony, lasa miasa mafimafy kokoa zany.
And because your blood cells can't use all that sugar, your blood sugar level rises when your doctor checks it.
Ary satria tsy afaka mampiasa an'ilay siramamy rehetra amin'ny vatanao dia lasa miakatra zany ny tahan'ny siramamy ao amin'ny tenanao.
And this causes a lot of health problems to have your blood level, the blood sugar level high.
Ary rehefa miakatra ny tahan'io siramamy ao amin'ny raha io dia miteraka aretina maro samihafa izy io.
What's amazing is that when you exercise, your cells become more sensitive to insulin again.
Ary ny zavatra mahafinaritra nefa dia rehefa manao fampiasam-batana zany isika dia ireo selantsika ireo manjary mora mandray ny asa ilay ataon'ny insuline.
There are many documented cases where people have reversed diabetes simply by walking every single day.
Misy zany ny fikarohana natao fa misy olona tena niova tanteraka ny tahan'ilay aretina tao aminy amin'ny fanaovana mizotra indray mandeha isanandro fotsiny zany dia fa niova tanteraka ny toe-pahasalamany.
When you exercise, your muscles use up more energy, and so they use up more of the sugar in your blood.
Satria rehefa manao fampiasam-batana ianao dia misy hery izay ampiasaina zany ao dia iny ihany koa mihinana ilay siramamy ao amin'ny tenanao ao.
Your muscles also, when you're exercising, reduce the inflammation that you have in your body.
Ary rehefa manao fampiasam-batana ianao dia mampidina ihany koa zany ny inflammation na ilay fahatsiarovana ohatra mamaivay marary ao amin'ny tenanao iny.
And it helps you maintain a healthy weight.
Ary efa ndresana teo fa manampy anao zany mba hitahiry ny lanja araka ny tokony ho izy.
And we know that when you have an unhealthy weight, this increases the risk of diabetes.
Satria rehefa mitomby ihany koa ny lanjanao dia mitomby ihany koa ny riska mety hanananao ny aretina diabeta.
Here's a study of physical activity on diabetes.
Ity dia fikarohana mahakasika ny fampiasam-batana sy ny diabeta.
This is the position statement of the American Diabetes Association.
Ity zany no fanambarana ny toerana izay raisiny ny fikambanana Amerikanina mahakasika ny diabeta.
So these are the biggest experts on diabetes in the United
Eo
States.
zany no anisan'ny olona lehibe indrindra expert amin'izany hoe diabeta izany.
And after looking at all the evidence, they said that exercise improves blood glucose control in diabetes.
Rehefa nijery an'ireo porofo mivaingana rehetra izy dia nahita fa ny fampiasam-batana dia manatsara ny fehezana ny glucose ao amin'ny ra amin'ilay diabeta type 2.
Okay? It reduces cardiovascular risk factors, contributes to weight loss, and improves well-being.
Mampidina ihany koa zany ireo aretina mety azo amin'ny lalan-dra sy miara-miasa amin'ny fiazomana ny lanja araka ny tokony izy ny fampihenana ny lanja.
Now, this is a very important statement. They say regular exercise may prevent or delay type 2 diabetes.
Ary ity dia fanambarana mahaliana mihitsy satria izy hoe ny fampiasam-batana manara-penitra na régulier zany manaraka rafitra dia miaro na mampijanona zany hoe retarder ny fisian'ilay fivelaran'ny diabeta ao amin'ny tenantsika eo le diabeta type 2.
And they also acknowledge that exercise can improve cardiovascular fitness and insulin sensitivity in your
Ary
cells.
efa hita teo fa manatsara ihany koa zany ny ao amin'ny lalan-dra izy sy mahatonga antsika mandray ny asa izay ataon'ilay insuline.
Let me talk to you now about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is cancer.
Mamelahy resaka aminareo zavatra izay tena manakaiky ny foko dia ny mahakasika ny homamiadana.
We have more and more evidence coming out every day that exercise can decrease your risk of getting cancer.
Misy porofo mivaingana sapahitana ny isanandro izay maneho fa ny fampiasam-batana dia mampidina ny riska hahatonga ny homamiadana.
And it does this in many different ways, including it improves your immune system.
Ary manao an'izany amin'ny fomba maro samihafa izy tahaka ny hoe manatsara ilay hery fiarovana ao aminao.
exercise lowers your inflammation in your body.
Satria ny fampiasam-batana ihany koa dia mampidina ny inflammation lay aretina manaintaina ao aminao ao.
Exercise also improves the healthy gut bacteria that you have in your colon.
Ary ny fampiasam-batana ihany koa zany dia manatsara ireo bakteria izay ao amin'ny tsinainao ao.
And it regulates your hormonal control.
Ary io mifehy an'ireo tsiranoka na hormona ao amin'ny vatatenanao.
So here's a study that showed that exercise lowers the risk of many different cancers.
Ity zany dia fikarohana izay maneho fa mampidina ny tahan'ny homamiadana ny fampiasam-batana.
And these include some of the most common cancers, including breast cancer, colon cancer, endometrial cancer, kidney cancer.
Ary ao anatin'izany ireo karazana homamiadana izay tena ampipiseho dia homamiadan'ny tratra, homamiadan'ny nono,
colon, endometrial,
ary ny homamiadana ao amin'ny tsinay.
stomach cancer, esophagus cancer. Stomach and esophagus
Ny
cancer.
homamiadana amin'ny vavony ihany koa zany.
And this is powerful evidence, and here it shows that the more exercise you do, the lower your cancer risk becomes for each of these cancers.
Ary ny amin'ireo homamiadana rehetra ireo zany dia manaporofo ty fandinihana ity fa rehefa manao fanatanjahantena bebe kokoa ianao dia midina ny tahan'ny mety azonao an'ireo homamiadana ireo.
Now I also want to talk about exercise in your brain health.
Resahako indray zany zao ny fampiasam-batana sy ny fahasalaman'ny ati-doha.
A lot of people suffer from depression and anxiety.
Maro ny olona zany no marary ny aretina tahaka ny hoe depression, raritsaina,
I met a lot of people today.
taintainana.
I met a lot of people in clinic today who told me that they have a lot of stress and anxiety in their life.
Ary androany dia nifanena tamin'ny olona izay miteny hoe be dia be ny stress eo amin'ny fiainao.
A lot of people also suffer from dementia.
Ary misy ihany koa ny olona maro izay marary ny dementia, inona ny tena mikatsika an'izany aretina zany? Areti-tsaina, ny manadinodino reny.
Exercise can benefit all of these things.
Ary ny fampiasam-batana zany dia mety azontsika tombontsoa ny amin'ny reo iarovana amin'ireo aretina izay voalaza teo ireo.
These myokines, these chemicals that the muscles produce, go straight to your brain.
Tadidio zany lay myokine ny resantsika teo ireny izay fikarin'ny osatra dia makany amin'ny ati-dohantsika avy hatrany.
And it promotes the growth of new neurons, which are your brain cells.
Ary mahatonga ny fivoaran'ny neurone vaovao hiatsara ao amin'ny ati-dohantsika.
This helps to protect against dementia.
Ary miaro antsika zany vokatry ny aretin'ny dementia ilay nitenenina teo veritadidy mety areti-tsaina.
And if there's any brain damage, it can help to repair that as well.
Ary na dia efa simba lay ati-dohanao ao dia manampy amin'ny fanarenana azy indray ny fampiasam-batana.
Because of the improved blood flow in your brain, exercise helps you to think better.
Ka satria ny fampiasam-batana dia mahatonga na raha ikoriana tsara ny amin'ny ati-dohanao dia manampy anao ihany koa zany io hieritreritra sy handinika tsara.
Your memory and your ability to learn improves.
Ary dia mitombo araka izany ny atsara ny fitadidianao sy ny fahafahanao mianatra.
It also regulates the neurotransmitters in your brain, which are the chemicals that are used to communicate between cells.
Hitantsika hoe ihany koa fa manatsara n'ilay antsoina hoe neurone izay mampifandray ny ao amin'ny vatantsika ao ny fampiasam-batana.
And this has been shown to improve people's mood, lower their stress and anxiety.
Ary dia voapirofo fa mahatonga ny fiatsaran'ny ny toe-tsain'ilay olona zany io dia midina ilay izy mitaintaina sy mataotao-dava hialava iny.
So this was a study I showed earlier about exercise affecting the cardiovascular system.
Ito ilay fiandinihana izay nasehoko ny amin'ny fampiasam-batana sy ny amin'ny système cardiovasculaire.
But in the same study, they showed that the people who exercised had much lower incidence of depression, anxiety, and hostile emotions.
Fa io fandinihana io ihany koa zany dia naneho fa ireo olona izay manao fampiasam-batana dia hita ihany koa fa midina ny antsoina hoe depression, anxiété, ilay fitaintainana, fanahiana, ary ilay toe-po izay mety maka ala sy tezitezi-dava iny midina ihany koa zany.
Here's a study that was done showing the benefit of exercise against the risk of dementia.
Ary ity ihany koa dia fandiniana matao mahakasika ny mazava-dehibe ny fampiasam-batana izay mampidina ny riska lay dementia lay areti-tsaina teo zany.
And this study says that activity patterns that were more adherent to vigorous exercises, okay, were associated with a reduced risk of multiple types of dementia.
Ary indresana teo zany fa ireo fihetsehana atao dia ny fampiasam-batana matetika zany ireo asa mandrara azy atao dia mampidina an'izay areti-tsaina dementia izay.
Okay. How many of you are now convinced that exercise is a very good thing?
Firy amintsika reto ary ndresy lahatra fa tena zava-dehibe ny fampiasam-batana.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now you might have a question, Dr. Shin, how much should I exercise?
Ka mety ametra-panontaniana nefa ianao manao hoe Dr. Shen, takony ahoana ary ny abetsaky ny fampiasam-batana tokony ataoko?
I'm glad you asked.
Ary faly satria mety mametraka an'izany fanontaniana izany ianareo.
So studies have shown that at bare minimum, we should be doing 30 minutes of physical activity 5 days a week.
Ny fikarohana natao zany dia maneho fa tokony manao fampiasam-batana 30 minitra isan'andro isika ary 5 andro ao anatin'ny herinandro.
So that would be a total of 150 minutes of exercise a week.
Midika zany fa eo amin'ny 50 minitra isan-kerinandro ny fampiasam-batana tokony atao.
That's 2.5 hours.
Eo amin'ny adiny roa sasany zany.
This is a minimum, not a maximum.
Izay ny farany ambany fa tsy hoe farany ambony akory, farany ambany.
Remember the studies I showed you that the more exercise you do, the more benefits you will see.
Tadidio le fikarohana efa niresahako taminareo arakaraky ny abetsaky ny fampiasam-batana, ny abetsaky ny tombontsoa azonareo ihany koa.
I also want to tell you that even if you do less than this amount, the exercise will still be beneficial.
Kanefa tiako ihany koa ny milaza aminareo fa na dia latsaka ny minimum io ary ny ataonareo dia mbola misy tombontsoa foana azo amin'ny fampiasam-batana.
But if you want to experience the health benefits I just talked about, this is a good goal to shoot for if you're not here already.
Fa raha toa tianareo zany ny azo ny tombontsoa rehetra izay niresahako teo dia ity ny farany ambany izay tokony atao amin'izany fampiasam-batana zany. Io ny tanjona tokony ho tratrarina.
You want the exercise to be at least moderate intensity.
Ary le fampiasam-batana zany dia tokony voalanjalanja tsara ihany koa ny hery vaikany.
Something is moderate intensity if you're doing the activity and you can talk but you cannot sing.
Mba ahafahana hoe voalanjalanja le izy dia rehefa manao le fampiasam-batana ianao dia afaka miteny fa tsy afaka mihira.
If you find it hard to talk, that's vigorous intensity.
Raha ohatra hitanao zany fa tsy afaka miteny ianao mpanaovana le fanatanjahantena dia fa ambony zany ny vaika an'ilay fanatanjahantena ataonao zay.
So vigorous intensity exercise is even more beneficial, but if you can't do that, stick with the moderate intensity.
Ka tena tsara nefa io fampiasam-batana efa ambonimbony io, kanefa raha tsy vitanao zay dia azonao atao ihany mijanona eo amin'ilay fampiasam-batana voalanjalanja, zany hoe sady mbola afaka miteny ianao manao an'ilay fampiasam-batana.
And if you think that you're doing exercise and you're finding that you can sing an entire song, you're not doing exercise.
Kanefa raha ohatra manao fampiasam-batana ianao kanefa mbola afaka sady mihira ny andininy rehetrarehetra dia tsy manao fampiasam-batana ianao zay.
So keep that in mind.
Ka aoka ho tehirizitsika ho an-tsaina zany zay.
So I want to leave you with some practical tips for exercising.
Tiako ny anome toro-hevitra azo ampiarina mahakasika ny fampiasam-batana.
So one is walk wherever you can.
Ny voalohany dia mandehana tongotra araka izay azonao atao.
If you go to a building that has elevators, try taking the stairs instead.
Raha ohatra ka mandeha any amin'ny trano anankiray izay misy ascenseur ianao dia mandehana amin'ilay tohatra.
If you go somewhere in a car, try parking further away from the entrance, so you have to walk more.
Raha ohatra ianao mandeha fiara dia apetrao lavidavitra amin'ny fidirana ny fiaranao mba ahafahanao mandeha tongotra.
Even if you're standing still, even if you're in your room and you're reading, try taking your book and just walking around your room while you're reading.
Na dia ao amin'ny efitranonao ary ianao mamaky boky dia sady mandeha ianao no mamaky an'ilay boky.
Any kind of physical movement is wonderful, and walking is the most safest and most consistently healthy movement that you can
Ary
engage in.
tsara avokoa ny fampiasam-batana rehetra fa ny fampiasam-batana mandeha tongotra no anisan'ireo tsara indrindra tsy azona ireo tombontsoa.
Okay? If you want to go somewhere faster than walking, ride your bicycle instead of walking.
Raha ohatra ka tia handeha haingakaingana kokoa anao a dia azonao atao ny mandeha bisikileta tsy mandeha tongotra.
Bicycling is very healthy and it's very good movement.
Tena mitondra fahasalamana ihany koa ny fitaingenana bisikileta.
Use your home as an exercise gym.
Aoka ny tokantranonao ny efitranonao zany ho ampiasainao tahaka an'ireny efitrano fanaovana gym reny.
There are many exercises you can do at home that can get your heart pumping.
Ary betsaka ny fampiasam-batana azonao atao na dia ao an-tranonao ao ary mba hahatonga ny fonao hitepy misimisy kokoa.
Exercises like push-ups and sit-ups and squats, you can do all of these things at home.
Azonareo atao ao an-trano zany ireo karazana fanatanjahantena tahaka ny manao pompy kely na manao etsiketsika nanenarany iny hainareo.
So get creative and figure out ways that you can incorporate more physical activity in your normal
Aoka zany
day-to-day life.
karokaroka mihitsy sika zay fomba ahafahantsika manao fampiasam-batana na dia ao an-tokantranontsika.
Now there are three most common excuses I hear over and over again when it comes to exercise.
Rehefa miresaka n'ity fanatanjahantena ty dia misy fialantsiny anankitelo zay matetika mpiseho voalaza lazain'ny olona.
The first one is, I don't have enough time.
Ny voalohany amin'izany dia hoe tsy manam-potoana.
You're looking at 30 minutes a day.
Ny fanjerentsika ty hoe mitady 30 minitra isan'andro zany ianao.
I don't care how busy you are, you can find 30 minutes in a day.
Tsy na dia manahoana raha fahasairananao ao tokantranonao hoe miasa be ianao dia afaka mahita 30 minitra isan'andro ianao.
Remember I told you yesterday about that experiment? If I was going to give you $1 million if you exercise for 30 minutes every day this week, how many of you would be able to get my $1 million?
Tadidinareo ve le niresahako maly hoe raha misy aminareo reo omena dolara amina million anapitrisany raha toka manao fanatanjahantena 30 minitra isan'andro. Firy aminareo nanao an'ilay fanatanjahantena?
No matter how busy you are, I guarantee everyone will figure out how to exercise.
Rahanareo atranao dia mahita an'ilay 30 minitra anareo satria misy an'izay hery manentana izay.
You can break it into 3 10-minute sessions.
Azonao atao ny mizarazara azy 10 minitra intelo e.
If you watch TV, you can do this in between during commercial breaks.
Raha dia mijery télé ary ianao dia azonao atao ilay fanatanjahantena rehefa misy an'ilay publicité kely iny rehefa mandeha ny série dia amin'iny manao fanatanjahantena.
Another excuse I hear is, I'm too old.
Ny fialantsiny henoko indray ihany koa dia ny efa antitra loatra ahy.
The fact is that movement is medicine for every age.
Ny azo lazaina sy voaporofo dia ny fampiasam-batana dia fanafody ho an'ny tsy taona rehetra.
The older you are, the more important it is that you exercise.
Arakaraky ny tombon'ny taonanao dia zava-dehibe ihany koa ny anaovanao fampiasam-batana.
We're not expecting you to run a marathon.
Tsy hoe antenaina hoe andeha hazakazaka marathon kory ianao.
Just daily walking consistently as you're getting older is one of the most healthy things you can do for yourself.
Fa ny fandehana tongotra manaraka régulier zany isan'andro dia tena misy vokatra tsara eo aminao.
And the third excuse I hear is, I'm too tired.
Ary ny fialantsiny fahatelo zay reko dia ny reraka loatra.
I work hard all day long and I come home and I'm so tired I have no energy, I cannot exercise.
Efa miasa mafy mandritra ny tontolo andro tsy manana hery tsony hanaovana fampiasam-batana na fanatanjahantena.
If this is you, then you need exercise more than anyone else.
Raha toka ianao miteny an'izany dia ianao mihitsy zany ny tena mila manao fanatanjahantena fampiasam-batana mihoatra noho ny olona hafa rehetra.
Because the more you move, the more energy you will have.
Satria arakaraky ny tombon'ny fampiasam-batana ataonao no anananao hery bebe kokoa.
And you will find that your mood will improve too.
Ary hitanao amin'izay fa hitombo hiatsara ihany koa ny fietsehana ny fietseham-batana zay ataonao.
In John 10:10, Jesus said, I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly.
Amin'ny Jona 10:10 dia zao no lazainy hoe zao avy mba hanana ny fiainana sady hananany be dia be.
See, God wants you to enjoy more abundant life here on earth.
Tian'Andriamanitra ny hanananao an'izany fiainana be dia be izany eto amin'ity tany ity.
He doesn't want us to await heaven sickly and weak.
Tsy tiany raha ohatra isika mikatsaka ny lanitra kanefa malemilemy sy marefo.
He doesn't want us thinking, oh, one day when I have my glorified body, that's when I will feel good and that's when I will be able to move and do all these things.
Tsy teny mihitsy sika raha miteny za rehefa mba any an-danitra mitafy an'ilay vatana vaovao vao tena mavitrika sy matanjaka tsara.
He wants you to experience your best life today.
Tiany raha am'izao androany izao anao dia efa manao fanandramana ny fiainana tsara indrindra eo amin'ny tenanao.
He created our bodies, and so he knows what we need to experience maximum health here.
Satria izy nahary ny vatantsika dia fantany izay ilayntsika mba hananantsika ny fiainana amin'ny fahatsarany faratampony.
And our Creator made us to move.
Ary ny mpahary atsika dia namboatra atsika mba olona mihetsiketsika manao fampiasam-batana.
So I challenge you to follow God's blueprint in your life.
Tiako zany ny anao fiaikananao mba hanaraka an'izay modelo nomen'Andriamanitra izay eo amin'ny fiainanao.
And as a result of experiencing better health through movement, my prayer is that your relationship with God will deepen.
Ary rehefa miatsara ny toe-pahasalamanao vokatry ny fampiasam-batana dia maniry ihany koa raha hiatsara ihany koa ny fifandraisanao amin'Andriamanitra.
God bless you all and thank you very much.
Misaotra betsaka hitantsika rehetra ny Andriamanitra.
Saorantsika ny profesera ny amin'izay fampianarana mahafinaritra izay mandresy latra ka dia samy nao fanatanjahantena avokoa zany isika rehetra manomboka raha-pitso maraina na ny rivo avy hatrany. Eny ary dia ny profesera Roger Short indray zany zao no anazava amintsika ny amin'ny inona moa zany tokony atao mba hatonga antsika ho ela vela.
Good evening.
Mirabantsika amin'ity arivo ity manao daholo tsika.
So, we talked about sunlight yesterday,
Omaly isika dia niresaka ny amin'ny tanamasoandro, taramasoandro.
and we had bright sunlight today.
Ary dia tena niposaka tokoa ny masoandro androany.
Today we're going to talk about water. So, I don't know, are we going to have rain tomorrow?
Androany isika
Rain.
androany isika dia resaka mombana rano ka asa raha mety hanorana raha-pitso.
If you notice, we've been talking about very basic, very simple things that you can do to improve your life.
Ny zavatra resantsika eto dia ny zavatra tsotra izay azonareo atao mba hampitombo sy hanatsara ny fahasalamana.
Dr. Shin has talked to us about nutrition yesterday
Omaly ny Dr. Shin dia niresaka amintsika ny amin'ny lafiny ara-tsakafo
and the right types of food.
sy ireo karazan-tsakafo tsara tokony hohaniny.
I talked to you yesterday about the sun.
Dia niresaka aminareo ihany koa omaly mahakasika ny masoandro.
Today, Dr. Shin talked to you about exercise.
Dia androany Dr. Shin niresaka aminareo mikasika ny fampiasam-batana.
And I'm going to talk to you about water.
Dia androany zany iresaka ny momba ny rano.
These are things that we can give you today that, unlike a medication, will not run out.
Izany dia omenanao androany ka tsy mitovy amin'ireo fanafody izay mety lany.
And it's part of what we talked about, which is New Start, which is one of the things that we make sure everybody who comes to our health fairs understands before they see the physicians and get maybe the medications that will help for a little while.
Ary izay no mahatonga anay hoe mandalo amin'ilay atao hoe New Start aloha le olona mahatakatra tsara ny zavatra takina amin'izay izay vao manantona an'ilay hoe dokotera izay mitsabo amin'ny alalan'ny fanafody simika.
Now, we have learned a lot in medicine in the last 100 years.
Nandritra ny anjato taona ny taty aoriana dia betsaka ny zavatra nianarana mahakasika ny fahasalamana.
And if you look here on the screen on the right side, you will see the current building that the university, Loma Linda University, practices its medicine out of, just one of the hospitals.
Hitantsika eo zany raha mijery amin'ilay akavanana isika ilay misy an'ilay toeram-pitsaboana ao Loma Linda amin'izao vanim-potoana izao.
It's very big, it's very sophisticated.
Tena lehibe tokoa ary tena manara-penitra sophistiqué.
But at the very core of the mission of Loma Linda is part of what we see on the building on the left.
Fa ny tena ivony ny asa izay tanterahan'ny Loma Linda dia hitantsika eo amin'ilay trano eo ankavia.
This is a building known as the Battle Creek Sanitarium in Berrien Springs, Michigan.
Io no antsoina hoe Battle Creek Sanitarium any Battle Creek zany.
In Battle Creek, Michigan, I should say.
Any
Yes.
Michigan. Yeah.
Why would I bring this up? Because today we're going to talk about water, but I'm going to digress and then we'll come back to water.
Yeah. Nahoana moa ny resaka an'izany satria tsika amin'ity androany ity dia hiresaka momba ny rano fa hiresaka zavatra hafa aloha dia hiverina eo amin'ny rano ihany avy eo.
What do you need to do if you want to rob a bank?
Inona ny zavatra tokony ataonao raha toa ka handroba banky, hamaky banky ianao?
You need to take out the security guard.
Ilainao aloha ny miala manaisitra an'ireo mpiambina an'le banky.
If you're going to go in to rob a bank,
raha toa ianao handeha hamaky banky, handroba banky
do you want a tall security guard to greet you at the desk?
move ianao maniry le hoe le mpiambina an'le banky irabanao eo am-patongavana?
Or do you want a little security guard?
Ary olona goavana be le mpiambina tianao hita sa mpiambina kely?
This is exactly what the virus that infects our body is asking.
Izany indrindra no fantaniana apetraky ny virus izay tady hiditra ao amin'ny vatantsika.
Because our body is a bank full of currency of life.
Satria ty vatantenantsika ty dia banky izay feno vola ny fiainana be dia be.
But the virus wants to steal our life.
Kanefa io virus io dia te hangalatra ny fiainantsika.
And just like any bank robber, he has to have a plan about what to do about the security guard.
Ary tahaka ny mpamaky banky rehetra dia mieritreritra izy hoe ahoana ny fomba hiatrehana an'ireo mpiambina an'le banky.
This is the body's security guard.
Ireo zany ny mpiaro ny vatantenantsika.
The white blood cells of your body.
Ny sela fotsiny ny tenantsika, vatantsika.
And they make something called interferon. Say it with me. Interferon.
Izay no zavatra ataony mba teneno hoe ilay zavatra enina teo interferon.
Interferon, that is the security guard.
Ireo zany ilay mpiambina.
Interferon goes throughout your body and makes sure that any viruses that want to infect your body are kicked out.
Ireo zany miaro manao izay azo atao hoe rehetra izay tady hanafika ny vatantsika dia voadaka miala any.
And I can tell you that our immune system is so well designed.
Ary lazaiko anareo fa ny hery fiarovantsika io dia tena voarafitra tsara mihitsy.
That for any virus out there
ka na inona virus avy any ivelany any
that you come down with an illness with,
izay mety hitondra ny aretina eo aminao,
it had already had a plan to disable your security guard.
Dia manao ny
To inactivate your security guard.
Ny zavatra ataony zany dia izay tsy apetsika, tsy afametsika ireo mpiambina ireo.
Many scientific articles have looked at interferon and viruses together.
Ary betsaka zany ireo mpikaroka izay nijery an'io interference ny virus io miaraka.
This is something that viruses have evolved to attack us.
Izay no mahatonga lay virus io zany dia miova izy io misy evolution mba ahafahany manafika atsika.
If you look at this graph, you will see that people who had very severe COVID had low levels of interferon.
Ity sary hitatsika ity zany dia maneho amintsika fa ireo izay mitafian'ny virus ny Covid dia satria ambany lay interferon ao aminy.
The red were the little midget security guards.
Satria lay mena zany dia lay mpiambina ambany indrindra.
And because of this, these people ended up in the ICU with COVID.
Ary izay no nahatonga ireny olona ireny zany nakany amin'ny fitsaboana urgence mihitsy tamin'ny Covid.
But the ones with the blue security guards, which were tall,
fa ireo izay nanana mpiambina lehibe zany tahaka ny aseho an'ilay mangamanga eto
full of interferon,
betsaka ny interferon aminy
they just brushed off the virus like it was nothing.
dia ohatrany hoe nakipany kely fotsiny, borisina kely fotsiny dia lasa le virus.
So the scientists looked very carefully at the virus, COVID.
Ka nijeren'ny mpandinika tsara zany ity virus ny Covid ity.
And they noticed that there was a gene in COVID.
Dia hitan'izy ireo fa misy gène ao amin'ny Covid eo.
And this gene made a protein that disabled the security guard interferon.
Ary io gène io zany nanapika atsika le gène sa fahitsika zany. Io gène io zany mamokatra protéine zay.
The gene produced a protein that would inactivate the security guard.
Mamokatra protéine zay mahatonga an'ilay mpiambina ho tsy afametsika.
So notice here, here's a graph of when they looked at this. All of these are all of these graphs
Hitantsika zany fa ny tableau rehetra zay eo
are beneficial things that happen in the human body.
dia resaka nireo toejavatra tsara mahasoa eo amin'ny vatantsika.
And the scientists went into the virus
Ary rehefa nijeren'ireo mpandinika scientifika zany lay virus
and they turned off this gene.
dia nony nataony zay tsy ahafahany io gène io miasa.
And you'll see that those are orange. The ones where the gene in the virus is turned off is orange.
Dia hitantsika zany fa lay loko l'orange dia ireo zay ohatrany hoe novonona na nakatona zany lay virus.
But the blue ones are the normal virus.
Fa lay mangamanga ndray no virus normal.
So notice what happened. When they turned off these genes in the virus, the body made better interferon.
Dia hitantsika io zany fa rehefa hidina lay virus io dia betsaka tsara kokoa lay interferon am'lay vatany.
What I'm trying to tell you is that if you want to be impervious to viruses, you need to make sure that your immune system is working well.
Ny tiako lazaina zany dia hoe raha tianareo ny handresy an'ilay virus dia mila atao miasa tsara ny hery fiarovana ao anatintsika ao.
And specifically that the viruses that are out there to infect us know how to turn off our immune system.
Ary fantatsika ihany koa fa reny virus miparitaka en'ireny dia mahafantatra ny fomba andina lay hery fiarovana ao amintsika.
So, here's a study that looked at giving people extra interferon when they were infected with COVID.
Ity zany fandiniana zay natao mba hahatonga ny olona hanana ny interferon bebe kokoa tsaratsara kokoa na dia misy ny virus ny Covid ary.
And this was published in the prestigious journal, the New England Journal of Medicine.
Ary naparitaka tao amin'ny journal na boky gazety zay tena malaza zany dia ny boky an-gazety any Londres.
When they gave people extra interferon, they went to the hospital half the time.
Ary rehefa nomena interferon misimisy kokoa zany reo olona reo dia ny fotoanany laniny tany amin'ny hopitaly dia niena atsasany.
And I want to make sure everyone understands, it doesn't matter which variant of the virus it is.
Ary tiako ny atakarantsika rehetra fa tsy mampaninona zany na inona karazan'ilay virus voalaza eto.
In fact, this works just as well for influenza as it does for COVID.
Ary izany dia misy fiatraikany na eo amin'ny virus na grippe C reny na ny virus na Covid.
And it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or
Ary
unvaccinated.
tsy mampaninona ihany koa na vita vaksiny ianao na tsy vita vaksiny.
And it doesn't matter if we're talking about hospitalization or death, it simply reduces it.
Ary na miresaka hoe miditra hopitaly na hoe maty vokatr'ilay virus tsy mampaninona fa ny zavatra hita dia midina daholo zany rehetrarehetra izany.
So if you want to have a tall security guard in your bank,
Raha tianao zany ny anana mpiambina ngeza be matanjaka ao amin'ilay bankinao,
you want to have a lot of interferon.
raha tianao ny anana interferon be dia be,
So how can we get it?
ahoana ny fomba azona azy?
Should we go to the hospital to put it into our veins?
Move andeha ho any amin'ny hopitaly isika dia tsindromana reny ao amin'ny lalan-dratsika
Do we take it as a pill?
na hoanitsika tahaka an'ireny pilina reny ve le izy?
I have a better idea.
Misy fomba tsaratsara kokoa zay omeko anareo.
There is a way to stimulate your own body to make more interferon.
Misy fomba zany zay ahafahana manentana ny vatantsika mba hamokatra interferon bebe kokoa.
This was a study that showed that as we increase the body temperature up to 38, 39 degrees,
Ary misy fikarohana zany eto fa rehefa ampitombotsika ny hafanan'ny vatatenatsika any amin'ny 38-39 degré
there was a 10-fold increase in interferon.
dia afoloeny ny fitombon'ilay interferon ao amintsika.
How many people want to have the interferon at 37 degrees?
Firy amintsika no azo intete azo interferon amin'ny 37 degré.
He's a little midget.
Zany hoe kely fokely zany.
At 37, he's also a little midget.
Ao amin'ny 37 degré zany dia mbola ambany ihany le izy.
But when you get to 39 degrees, this man is a 10-foot tall security guard in your bank.
Fa rehefa miakatra 7-telopolo degré zany le hafanana dia melehibe ihany koa ilay mpiambina ao amin'ny vatatenatsika ao mekoavana.
The virus is going to go into the door and come right back out.
Ary rehefa miditra virus eo am-baravarana dia ateverina ingana izy mahita an'ilay mpiambina.
Notice this. This is a study that was done.
Mario ity fikarohana zay natao ity
That just a 1 degree temperature increase in temperature in your body,
fa ny fampitomboanao 2 degré fotsiny a ny hafanan'ny vatanao,
going from 37 degrees to 38 degrees,
zany hoe makeo amin'ny 37 degré makany amin'ny 38 degré,
caused a incredible amount of increase in all of the cells that increase interferon.
dia efa miteraka fitombon'ny interféron ao amin'ireo sela maro isan-karazany.
Now this is a very complicated graph.
Ity dia fanehoana tsara tena sarotra dia sarotra.
And I want to show you how complicated our body is.
Ary tiako moa tsy ny aneho fa ty vatatenantsika ty a dia tena compliqué, sarotra dia sarotra.
But if you look at the top of that screen a little bit on the right, you'll see a little blue molecule.
Kanefa raha mijery anareo eo ambony eo a dia ahita molecule mangamanga,
That's interferon.
io no antsoina hoe interféron.
All of these other processes are things that regulate the production of interferon.
Fa io zavatra rehetra hitanareo io zany a dia fomba fiasa zay mandrindra an'io interféron io.
And all of those red arrows show that they all dramatically increase at 38 degrees Celsius.
Ary le tsipika mena filesy menamena ireny zany a dia maneho a ny fitombon'ilay fomba fiasa ny fitombon'ny interféron amin'ny vatatenantsika.
And that's the definition of a fever.
Ary izay a no famaritana ny atao hoe fièvre na fanavina.
Now I want to read the statement from the scientists down below.
Ity zany no zavatra lazain'ny mpahay siantifika.
They said, indeed,
Eny tokoa,
an increase in temperature alone,
amin'ny fampitombona ny hafanana irery ihany,
without any additional stimulation,
tsy misy fanampina na fanentanana hafa ankoatran'izay fanampiny,
was sufficient to increase phosphorylation and activation of all of these regulatory
dia
mechanisms.
efa ampy mba hampitombona an'ireo phosphorylation sy ampientana an'ireo zavatra voatanisa rehetra ireo.
This is the way we can get around the virus in activating interferon.
Izay zany no ahafahantsika miala amin'ny virus io a amin'ny fanetsehantsika ilay interféron.
Now, remember I told you that I was today talking about water.
Water. Fa iresaka momba n'inona tsika androany? Rano.
Water is the very best way to transmit heat to the human body.
Ny rano a no fomba tsara indrindra mba ahafahana mampita ny hafanana ao amin'ny vatatenantsika.
And this, in the Battle Creek Sanitarium, is what they were doing over 100 years ago.
Ary nandritra ny taona anjatony maro a dia izay no nataon'ity sanatorium ao Battle Creek ity.
By putting people who had viral illnesses into bathtubs that were hot,
Dia fametrahan'ny olona zay tratran'ny virus ao anaty fandrona rano mafana,
they were increasing interferon levels
ary dia mampitombo ilay interféron amin'ny vatatenany,
and getting over the virus very early,
ary mahita an'ireo virus aingana dia aingana,
so it never got to the hospitalization stage.
ary dia tsy miditra hôpitaly mihitsy ny olona zay azon'izany virus izany.
This is from 1910.
Tamin'ny taona 1790 zany no efa nampiasaina.
I have to throw this picture in there because this is a light box and it sort of reminds me of what we talked about yesterday.
Ary eto zany dia hitantsika ty sary boaty anankiray ty zay miresaka n'le fandresantsika omaly
1894.
tamin'ny 490.
Now, it's very labor intensive to use hydrotherapy using towels and hot water to elevate people's body temperature.
Misy zany ny fomba maro ampiasana ny rano zay mampiakatra ny hafanana tahaka ny fampiasana an'ireny servieta mafana ireny, fitsaboana amin'ny rano ampiakarana ny hafanana.
And these were the bath attendants at the Battle Creek Sanitarium in 1890.
Dia reo hitanareo reo zany dia sarin'ireo olona zay napiasa ny hoe fandrona amin'ny rano mafana tao amin'ny sanatorium amin'ny Battle Creek io tamin'ny taona 790.
Much more difficult than just giving a pill.
Tena
Much more difficult than giving just a pill.
mety sarotra kokoa noho ny hoe manome pilina fotsiny.
Here's some of the men doing the hydrotherapy.
Hitanareo zany reo olona lehilahy zay mampiasa ny hydrotherapie na fitsaboana amin'ny alalan'ny rano.
They were taking towels,
Maka servieta izy ireo,
dipping it in hot water,
dia atao anaty rano mamay be,
wringing them out,
dia fiazana
making careful that they don't burn the patients,
dia mitandrina tsara mihitsy so dia andoro an'le marary
applying it to the patients,
dia apetaka eo amin'le marary le
heating
izy
them up for 20 minutes,
ary avela eo manafana azy eo mandritra ny 20 minitra
and then cooling them down for 1 minute in an ice bath.
ary avy eo dia ampangatsiahana mandritra ny 2 minitra indray amin'ny alalan'ny laglasy.
This is the types of treatments that would raise the body temperature.
Izay zany ny fomba nampiasaina tamin'izany fotoana zany mba hampiakatra ny hafanan'ny vatana.
And they had no idea why it worked, they just knew that it did work.
Ary tsy fantatra izy ireo tamin'izany hoe nahoana le izy naomby fa dia naomby le izy tamin'izany.
Today we know why it works.
Fa amin'izao fotoana izao zany dia efa mahafantatritsika hoe nahoana moa naomby zany fitsaboana izany.
And I tell you, if there was a pandemic worse than COVID,
raha misy ara lazaiko aminareo fa na dia misy ara arety mandringana ratsy kokoa noho ny Covid
and we don't have the ability to get medications to people,
ary tsy manana ny fahafahana anome fanafody ho an'ny olona isika.
this is something that you could depend on locally because you can have hot water.
Dia zavatra zay azo ataontsika eto atoerana zany satria azontsika atao manana rano mafana,
And you have towels.
manana serveta ihany koa ianao,
And you can save lives if you understand this.
ary afaka mamonjy aina ianao raha takatra ho tsara izany zavatra izany.
These are famous guests that got their treatments at the Battle Creek
Tao
Sanitarium.
amin'io sanatorium io dia reto misy olo malaza zay notsaboana vahiny tao amin'io toerana io.
Henry Ford, the inventor of the automobile,
Anisan'izany Henry Ford zay namorona ny automobile,
and presidents of the United States.
na dia ny président-ny États-Unis ara dia tao.
There was a gentleman by the name of Wells Rubel.
Nisy lehilahy anankiray natsoina hoe Wells Rubel.
He was the medical director in the New England Sanitarium.
Izy no directeur amin'ilay dokotera zany tamin'ny klinika anankiray
New England Sanitarium.
sanatorium ny New England.
And he had a predicament. He had to deal with people in the 1918 flu pandemic.
Ary izy dia tsy maintsy nikarakara an'ireo olona zay tratry ny aretina gripa tamin'ny taona 1900 1800 zay tena aretina ndringana tamin'izany.
So he compared what he was doing with the hydrotherapy to what they were doing in the army hospitals with aspirin.
Ary nampitahainy zany ny zavatra zay nataony tamin'ny fitsaboana tamin'ny alalan'ny hydrothérapie ranomafana sy ny fitsaboana tamin'ny alalan'ny aspirine tany amin'ny hôpitaly miaramila.
In one place, they were giving treatments to raise the body temperature.
Tany amin'ny toerana anankiray zany dia mena fanafody izy ireo mba hampiakatra ny hafanan'ny vatana.
And in the other place, they were giving pills to drop it.
Kanefa any amin'ilay toerana anankiray zany dia mena pilina izy ireo mba hampidina indray an'ilay hafanana, ilay aspirine teo.
This is what he found.
Dia izao ny zavatra hitany.
In the army hospitals,
Tany amin'ny hôpitaly miaramila
there was 2 phases to the disease.
dia nisy dingana anankiroa ilay aretina.
The first phase was whether or not they developed pneumonia.
Ny dingana voalohany zany dia lasa nisy ny aretina pneumonie.
16% of those in the army hospitals developed pneumonia.
Ary ny 4% amin'ireo marary tany amin'ny hôpitaly miaramila zany dia nahazo an'izay aretina pneumonie zay.
Only 2% in the sanitariums developed pneumonia.
Fa tany amin'ilay sanatorium zay nampiasa fitsaboana amin'ny alalan'ny rano zany dia 2% fotsiny ihany nahazo an'ilay aretina pneumonie.
However, once someone developed pneumonia in either place, the chances were very high before antibiotics that they would die.
Ary na dia efa nisy ara zany ilay fivelaran'io aretina io dia tena ambony ny tany amin'ilay toerana anankiray.
So you can see that overall, the mortality in the sanitariums was 1/6 of that in the army hospitals. 1/6.
Ny fahafatesana tany amin'ilay sanatorium zany dia 1/6 ray apahenina ilay izy.
Much lower.
Tena ambany dia ambany zany hoe raha misy olona enina dia ray maty.
And that is because it worked quickly.
Satria miasa aingana dia aingana izy io.
Here's another story in the Danish Norwegian Seminary in Hutchinson, Minnesota.
Tantara anankiray indray ity zany tany amin'ny séminaire norvégienne tany Danemark.
This was a very deadly disease, especially for young people in 1918.
Dia aretina tena nahafaty indrindrandrindra ny tanora tamin'ny taona valopolo sivanjato sy arivo.
But in 1918, this Seventh-day Adventist seminary,
Valopolo sivanjato sy arivo azafady.
in 1918, this Seventh-day Adventist seminary came down with the influenza virus.
Ity séminaire adventiste ity zany dia tonga nyo virus ny gripa io.
120 were exposed in this dormitory.
Ary 20 zany nitratra an'ilay virus tao amin'ny trano fandriana dortoir.
90 patients became sick,
90 no narary
but there were no deaths.
kanefa dia tsy nisy ny maty na dia ray azy.
And I want you to read from the article in the newspaper.
Ary tiako ianareo raha mamaky an'ity andanateny izay nivoaka gazety ity.
They said once a patient showed sickness, they were put to bed.
Ary izay lazainy eto zany hoe raha vao natao teo am-pandriana lay marary
with a trained nurse taking the temperature and watching for symptoms of the epidemic.
ka misy mpitsabo nurse infirmier mikarakara amin'ny fangalana ny hafanany.
If those symptoms developed, there was no drugs given,
na mitombo ny aretina kanefa tsy nisy fanafody nomena
but complete rest and quiet and fomentations given to the throat, chest, and abdomen.
fa ny zavatra natao zany dia lay fitsaboana tsy nisy fanafody natao fa makaina tsara fotsiny lay olona, makaina ary misy an'ilay fomentation apetraka eo amin'ny tenda zay lamba lemana mafana iny zany.
A fomentation is a towel that's very hot wrapped to the body to increase the body
Lay
temperature.
fomentation zany dia lay servieta mafana zay arakotra ny tena manontolo.
They said because of this, not a single death in the seminary was realized.
Dia voalaza zany fa noho izay fitsaboana izay dia tsy misy na dia ray aza maty tao amin'io seminaire io.
At the end of the article, they thank Sister Louise Knudsen.
Ary tamin'ny fiafarany zany dia nisaotra ny ezaka zay nataony Sœur Louise Knudsen izy
She was the seminary nurse
satria io no infirmier tao amin'io seminaire io mpitsabo-panampy
and the one that demonstrated the use of hydrotherapy.
ary naneo ny fampiasana ny hydrothérapie fitsaboana amin'ny alalan'ny rano.
This is not just something that was done in this part of the country.
Tsy hoe tany amin'iny firenena iny ihany nanaovana an'izany fikarohana izany
In 1927,
fa tamin'ny 770
the Nobel Prize in Medicine
ny prix Nobel teo amin'ny fitsaboana
was given to an Austrian psychiatrist
dia nomena na Australien anankiray psychiatre
by the name of Julius Wagner Jauregg.
ary Julius Wagner Jauregg ny anarany.
And listen to what he did.
Ary eno ihany ny zavatra nataony.
At that time, they did not have antibiotics for neurosyphilis.
Tamin'izany dia mbola tsy nisy ny fitsaboana n'ilay
Syphilis. But they did understand how to treat malaria.
fa ny fantany tamin'izany dia fomba fitsaboana ny tazo mahery malaria.
And so notice what he's doing here in this picture. He's the one in the black suit in the middle.
Ary jereontsika ny zavatra nataony eo amin'ny sary eo hoe izy le manao palitao maintimainty eo ampovoany io.
This unfortunate gentleman is getting injected with blood full of malaria.
Ity lehilahy ity zany dia indrisy fa nitsindromina tamin'ny feno malaria zany natsindrona azy.
The malaria is causing very high fevers.
Ary mazava ho azy fa niteraka hafanana ny nanavy be zany niakatra be ny hafanana vokatry zay malaria zay.
The high fevers is increasing his interferon.
Ary rehefa niakatra ny fanaviana na hafana be dia nitomby ihany koa ny interferon.
And the interferon is making his security guard very tall.
Ary fantatsika fa ny interferon dia mahatonga an'ilay mpiambina ho tena lehibe goavana.
And the security guard is going over and beating up the neurosyphilis.
Ary tamin'izay fotoana izay ilay mpiambina ngeda be io zany dia nandresy an'ilay neurosyphilis.
The neurosyphilis goes away.
Dia lasa nandeha zany nandositra ilay neurosyphilis ilay aretina.
Finally, they treat him for the malaria.
Ary avy eo vao nitsaboana tamin'ilay aretina malaria tazo.
The man is cured.
Dia sitrana lehilahy.
And this is without any antibiotics.
Ary tsy nisy antibiotika nampiasaina tamin'izany na iray aza.
The next year, 1928,
ny taona manaraka an'iny 770
we discover penicillin.
dia nahita ny antsoina hoe penicilline isika.
Our world completely changes.
Ary dia niova tanteraka ny tontolo misy atsika.
We now focus on getting pills into people to treat diseases.
Satria lasa mifantoka tamin'ny fanomezana pila ny olona isika mba hitsabona azy reo amin'ny aretina.
And in some cases, there's nothing wrong with that. That is a beneficial use.
Ary tsy hoe zavatra ratsy akory zany fa misy zavatra mahasoa ny fampiasana an'izany.
But today we have completely forgotten how to use the treatments that we used to
Fa
use.
ny olana amin'izao fotoana izao dia tena adinitsika tanteraka ny fampiasana ny fomba fitsaboana izay nahazatra tany aloha tany.
And this becomes important in situations where we're not able to have these medications.
Ary tena zava-dehibe zany rehefa tonga amin'ny toe-javatra izay tsy afaka manana nyren'ilay fanafody ireny isika.
This is much more labor intensive than giving a pill.
Satria moramora kokoa ny asa atao noho ny mandeha mitady pila amin'ity fitsaboana eto ity.
But if you don't have a pill, it's all you have.
Raha toa ka tsy manana le pile ianao dia izay ihany zany ny fomba izay azonao hitsabona.
And understanding about how to do this type of work, whether it is fomentations,
Ary ny fahafantarantsika hatakarantsika ny fomba fampiasana an'ity fitsaboana amin'ny alalan'ny lamba mafana na fomentation ity zany
or a hot shower and a cold shower,
zany hoe mandeha mahandro amin'ny rano mafana dia avy eo rano mangatsiaka,
or it's what our friends in Europe do with sauna,
na izay ataon'ireo namantsika ilay antsoina hoe sauna.
this can be helpful and beneficial for a variety of infections.
Dia tena mahomby sy misy tombontsoa amin'ireo karazana aretina maro.
I would highly recommend that you learn how to do this.
Ary ity koa ny mampirisika anareo mba hianatra ny fomba fampiasana an'izany fitsaboana amin'ny alalan'ny rano izany.
This is a website that you can check out to learn more about this type of treatments.
Ity dia misy site web izay ahafahanareo mianatra mandalina misimisy kokoa mahakasika ny fitsaboana io.
If you go to Hydro, HYDRO, the number 4, COVID.com. Hydro4COVID.com.
Zavatra ataonareo zany dia hoe hydro for covid fa le fort efatra ny soratanareo HYDRO efatra ny covid.
There's a lot of resources there that could be very beneficial.
Dia misy zavatra maro zany aloharano-kevitra izay tondra soa anareo edina amin'io aretina io.
And this is something that can be used in addition to medications.
Ary azontsika ampiasaina ho fanampiny ny fitsaboana amin'ny alalan'ny fanafody ihany koa izany.
There's a lot of benefit to the things that God has given us.
Be dia be ny tombontsoa azo amin'ny zavatra izay nomen'Andriamanitra antsika.
We've talked about sunlight.
Ndresantsika ny tara-pahazavan'ny masoandro.
We've talked about nutrition.
Ndresantsika ny amin'ny lafin'ny sakafo.
We've talked about exercise.
Ndresaka ny amin'ny fampiasam-batana, fanatanjahantena.
And now finally the use of water, not just internally but also externally.
Ary ny farany zany dia ny fampiasana ny rano tsy hoe ety ivelany fotsiny ihany fa ao anatiny ihany koa.
Sometimes the best treatments are the most simple.
Ary mba fantatrareo fa ny fomba fitsaboana tsara indrindra dia matetika mitsotra indrindra.
God is good.
Tena tsara Andriamanitra.
Thank you so much.
Misaotra antsika rehetra.